Thank you, Mayor Leeser. We truly appreciate it because you're right. There's a lot of sacrifice in being up here, but we all feel deeply in our hearts that what we're doing is the right thing. We're not going to allow the vote to be suppressed. And that's why we're here and we're seeking federal voting rights legislation, and we'll see what happens. It's just kind of a wait and see situation. I'm not sure whether any other member of the delegation would like to say something.
That I can tell you is that if we didn't stand up for our rights, we'd know exactly what would have happened. But standing up for our rights will make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else have their hand raised? No?
Yes,
Okay.
Rep. Moody.
All right. Representative Moody?
No, and just wanted to thank the mayor for that. These are challenges that we didn't expect. I don't think any of your delegation thought that they would be spending this meeting up in Washington, D.C., but we will always go where we need to be to make sure that every El Pasoan and every Texan can vote. And so appreciate all the notes of support and the prayers that people have sent to us. It certainly is challenging, and some merit. And I just want to thank you and for lifting our spirits, because we've still got a ways to go to get this done. So thank you.
All right. I see Senator Blanco's hand is raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mayor, for your comments. Look, we had an opportunity in this special session to work on important things, such as the things that we do here at the MPO, like infrastructure, education, healthcare, and a variety of things. But unfortunately, those aren't the priorities of the other side. And we have worked in good faith to negotiate the ability to get important priorities through, and that's not happening. So we thank you for your support. We're going to continue to fight for our values in El Paso and our West Texas region, and your support and prayers are helpful. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'd like to now, I think that's all the hands that are raised that I can see.
Judge
Madam
Samaniego
Chair,
would
I
like
think
to
we have
comment.
a Judge Samaniego.
Okay, Judge, please proceed. If he's on, he's muted. I can't hear you, Judge.
Oh.
All right, so maybe he's having technical problems. We can always hear from him later on. I would like to then now start on our agenda, and that would be, if necessary, to discuss or a motion to approve the minutes of the June 25th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Anyone opposed to, well, first, any questions or anything, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, is there anyone that is not in favor of the motion? Again, hearing none, the motion is approved, and we can move on to item 2 on the agenda.
All right, so item number 2 is discussion and action to authorize the executive director to sign the Public Transportation Master Grant Agreement for fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 26 between the El Paso MPO and the Texas Department of Transportation. The executive director is further authorized to make all other actions necessary to execute the MGA.
Any questions on the authorization, requested authorization? Walter Miller, I see your hand up.
I would move to approve. I would move to approve this motion.
I'll second. This is Commissioner Olguin.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, is there anyone not in favor of the motion? Seeing no hands or no one speaking up, the motion is approved. Item 3.
Right. So item 3 is to authorize the executive director to sign task orders number 5 and number 6 pursuant to the terms and conditions of the interlocal MPO cooperation agreement entered into between the El Paso MPO and the University of Texas at El Paso, UTEP, on July 22, 2020. The executive director is further authorized to take all other actions necessary to execute task orders number 5 and number 6. Madam Chair, if we could take them separately, 5 and 6. So let me read items 3A and 3B separately.
That's good. Let's start then with the 3A.
Okay, so 3A is pursuant to task order number 5, UTEP will provide the El Paso MPO with personnel to assist in the performance of several tasks, such as to conduct regional transportation modeling and air quality conformity activities related to the Unified Planning Work Plan, UPWP, in an amount not to exceed $106,000 in fiscal year 2022. I can make some brief comments on this, Madam Chair. This is a sort of like a continuation or a renewal of what was task order number 1. And this is really where UTEP is helping us to provide the ability for the MPO to have the services of one of our members here that does a lot of the travel demand modeling and air quality modeling. And now I'm talking about Dr. Claudia Valles. So again, this would be just to cover the services for the next fiscal year. And again, an extension of what we did last year.
Okay. I see Alderman Miller's hand is up.
I would move to approve item 3A.
Is there a second?
Second,
All right, any discussion? Anyone opposed to it? Hearing none, the item 3A is approved. Moving on now, Mr. Calvo, to 3B.
Okay, so 3B is pursuant to task order number 6, UTEP will provide the El Paso MPO with data collection and analysis services related to the congestion management process, EMP, in an amount not to exceed $6,500 in fiscal year 2022. And I believe MPO staff is ready to provide any additional information.
Yes, this is Salvador Gonzalez Ayala with the El Paso MPO. As you know, the congestion management process, or CMP, is a travel and traffic monitoring task, which the MPO undertakes to assess performance of the transportation system. This is a very valuable tool required to identify needs on a transportation network and from it potential projects to meet such needs. So task order number 6 with UTEP, which we're asking TPB to approve, we continue the assistance of one student for 1 more year. 3 main tasks: briefly gather most recent data on vehicle travel times, incident response times, number of crashes. Task number 2 is identification of congested segments of our networks using different platforms, computer platforms. And finally, task number 3 would be evaluation of effectiveness of implemented strategies. That's before and after studies. So that's basically the tasks.
Are there any questions? I have a question with regard to, it says for fiscal year 2022. So this would be a service that would start up in early October, 1st of October?
Right. Well, in this case, we go by the state fiscal year in both task orders. So it would be starting September 1.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to
So moved.
This is, I'll second. This is Miller, second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Anyone opposed or not in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously, and now we can move on to item 4 on the agenda, and I'm gonna have Mr. Calvo start off by explaining it.
Right. So let me steal the screen here, because I will be managing this. Okay. So can you see my screen with the summary sheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So let me read the item as it is on the agenda. So it's discussion and action to approve recommendations from the executive committee. Authorize the executive director and TPB chair to submit a response to the Texas Transportation Commission and TxDOT's request for comment regarding the downtown I-10 project in El Paso during the fiscal year 2022 Unified Transportation Plan public comment period. The response should include support for option 1 and a rejection of TxDOT's proposal of additional funding for the project from categories 4U, 11, and 12. The response should include a commitment from the El Paso EPMPO to explore alternative funding sources for the project, including a reallocation of $101 million from other existing projects and funding sources. Again, Madam Chair, this is what a recommendation that came out of the executive committee and that meeting was held a week ago. Since then, as you well know, there's been a lot of communication and leading to gathering more information about this whole situation. So if it's okay with you, Madam Chair, I can start with the presentations to provide the background, make sure that everybody understands what it is that we're asking here, and then perhaps later on move with a different motion, if that's okay.
Yes, please do. Go ahead and
Okay.
give the background, because it is important for everyone on the policy board to understand what's going on.
Great. All right. So let me start with, and by the way, all items I'm showing here on the screen are in your backup information. So let me start with this presentation that was provided by TxDOT on July the 7th. And it was a public meeting where TxDOT unveiled the draft fiscal year 22 UTP. Okay, so I'll go really quick through the generic slides. Well, this one is important. So the official comment period for this UTP started on July the 9th and goes through August the 9th. Okay, so on the 7th they had a public meeting, and then of course they will have a public hearing on August the 2nd, and then the comment period ends on the 9th. Okay, so this is important to keep in mind. Then they went ahead and talked about the UTP, which is a TxDOT 10-year plan that provides guidance, and the bottom line is that if projects appear in the UTP, even though there's no guarantee of funding, but it gives you a pretty high level of certainty that projects appearing there will get funded and moving forward. And by the way, I know Tomas Trevino is also here, so feel free, Tomas, to jump in at any time if there's some clarification needed on the UTP. So again, there's a lot of details about the UTP, where it goes. It's a 10-year plan, and somewhere in the middle between all the different documents that we all have to prepare. Letting schedule 2 years, the TIP, which is 4 years. This one falls in the middle. Our MTPs are 20 plus years, and the statewide long range plan is 24 plus years. Again, I won't go into the details, but here's where it starts getting interesting. So this slide shows the total dollars that are included in this 10-year plan, and how these dollars are distributed among the 12 different categories. Okay, so for example, category 1 is preventive maintenance and rehab. This is mostly a category that is distributed to the different districts based on formulas. Category 2, which is used for more like congestion relief type of a corridor projects, and so on. The ones that we're more familiar with, category 5, CMAQ, which is controlled by the MPO. The MPO selects projects for category 5 as well as category 7. But then, of course, the big the crown jewel of all these, when we talk about the big projects, is category 12, which is the commission's strategic priority. This is a category where the commission selects projects based on a number of different criteria, and assign funding to those projects. It's 21% of the total pot. Here's a map that shows the distribution among the different districts here for El Paso, even though it's a little small here, but you see that out of the 74, we get about 1.7 of it, and you can see it how it's distributed among the different districts. So again, more information about the different categories, but I want to get, and then here at category 2, they just highlighted some projects throughout the state. Collin County, San Antonio, Austin for category 2, category 4, Rio Grande, etc. So we're getting towards the end of the presentation, right? So it was pretty surprising to see that towards the end, in this presentation, TxDOT highlighted 2 projects, right, among the thousands of projects in the state. One of them is the I-45 project in Houston that has, some questions and some issues there. And interesting is that, TxDOT here is asking the public to comment specifically about this project, right? Is the public in support of maintaining the project or not, or in support of moving the project or not? There's, some information here about the project, but that's Houston. The next project that they came up and presented in this public meeting was our I-10 segment 2 project, which again, obviously has been identified as our priority project here. So, so they pose a similar question to the public, and we'll get into the details, but they're asking, well, there's a potential proposal here for funding, and then they're asking the public, are you in support of the project and adding the proposed funding or not? Okay, so here are the details. And again, we saw this pretty much for the first time at this public meeting. So we were, literally not prepared to comment on this. So the good news is that it appears that the project would be added to the UTP, but with only $4 million of category 4U, right? So clearly in this table, you see that there's $4 million in funds, but then there's a $746 million gap. And this gap, it's important to also to understand, we would work together to fill it in this coming year, so that in next year, when we're talking about the fiscal year 23 UTP, hopefully the project gets funded, right? So the initial proposal is, $4 million, and we'll figure out, how to do the rest. But then here on this second column was interesting that the proposal, and this is really the subject of the question that they were asking here, is the potential addition of category 4U, 11, and 12 funds, which are these that we see here. These 3 rows, 17, 4.9, and 40, add up to 61.9 million, right? So, of course, it's more money. That's a good thing. However, this gap that you see here of 688 million comes with the condition, or that the El Paso MPO commits to work with TxDOT on the following actions, on these 3 bullets down here, to find the 688. So, it took us a little bit of time to understand what these bullets are, right? The numbers here, just keep these numbers in mind: 194, 285 million, and 210, which adds up to the 688, 689, that we see here in the gap, right? So that was the proposal. So, we were discussing it and trying to figure out what that means, right? Well, this is really what it means, okay? Here in this table up here, you see the 3 numbers, the 210, 283, 193, that add up to the 688. Well, 687, because it's not exact because of rounding, but it'll give you the idea. This table right here shows the 10-year construction program that TxDOT has for the big ticket items for the on-system projects, right? The I-10 widening Mesa to the state line, which is letting it early, still in calendar 2021. Downtown 10, now it's showing up with 4 million. But here you see the rest of the projects and they're color coded here so we can identify it. Currently, Artcraft and Pendale are projects that are funded with Category 12, which was a good thing. We got those funded a couple of years ago. And these two add up to 210, which is the number that you see here, right? Then all of these dollar amounts that you see in yellow for the rest of the projects add up to the 283. Okay, so basically they're saying, well, you would not build anything other after building I-10 widening. You know, the district wouldn't build anything on system, you know, during the life of the UTP, so that all this money would be redirected to the segment 2. And then finally, what you see here in green is really all of the allocations for categories 5 and 7 that, you know, we use a lot to control, I mean, to fund the local government projects, and it's, you know, more controlled by the MPO. So the full allocations for years 26 through 31 would be, you know, dedicated to the project. If you see here, the sum of these add up to 193, which is the third component, right? So, you know, once we understood more or less what the proposal was, you know, clearly doesn't, I'm sorry, sorry, I lost it here.
They were asking from us potentially what we were reading from the UTP. Go ahead.
Right, exactly, right. So let me get back to the proposal here. Okay, there we go. So so basically, you know, we thought, well, this is doesn't look like a very good proposal, right? And therefore, you know, we were, you know, discussing here, and obviously, given that this was a proposal that was made to the region, and they're calling specifically the MPO, well, now it's in the public arena, and of course we need to respond accordingly. And again, don't forget that this is within the public comment period for the UTP, and that's why we have to respond within this period, and therefore the decision to take it to the EC and today to the policy board. So, you know, that's the background. That's what we took to the executive committee, and just summarizing some of the discussion at the executive committee, I think, you know, some things are pretty clear. That and again, Madam Chair, please jump in if at any point to help clarify. So I think we all agree that segment 2 is still the #1 priority project for us in the region. The second thing is that I think there is an understanding that, yes, you know, as a region, we do need to put local skin in the game, right? You know, we do need to find a way to find you know, funds to make it attractive for the commission also to help us fund the project. But finally, you know, it is very clear that this proposal itself is not, you know, it's not palatable, right? I mean, it's, you know, do nothing for 10 years. I don't think it's a really good idea. So in the discussion at the executive committee and in working together with the district folks, with Tomás Treviño, Neri Valtier, and Raúl Ortega at the district, we did, you know, went back and looked at the program here and said, well, you know, of these projects that we have here, well, of course, you know, there are some higher priorities and lower priorities. So that's where this idea that you see on the agenda item of 100 million that we could, you know, perhaps, you know, pledge or provide as an initial offering for local skin in the game. However, and on this one, I'm going to need your help, Madam Chair. Also at the executive committee, there was, you know, guidance and a request, and it was a good idea to try to get a meeting with the TxDOT administration to get further clarification on this, right? You know, to see really what was the intent of the commission and TxDOT to put the you know, this item on the on the presentation for the public meeting, and try to get a better feel, because really, we as a region, and I'll speak for myself as an MPO, I have not had a direct communication with the TxDOT administration on this. It's always been, with Tomas and Eddie here at the district level, but there seems to be a gap in that communication. So we did have a meeting with 3 of the high-level members of the TxDOT administration yesterday morning. It was Rep. Ortega, myself, with them, and with Tomas and Eddie Valtier and Raul. And I think we got some really, really good clarification on the intent, but more importantly, how to move forward, right? How to move forward in terms of really finding a way that is equitable and reasonable to fund the project in next year's UTP. With that, Madam Chair, I've spoken a lot.
All right, I'll go
Help
ahead
me out here.
and take over. Thank you, though, for explaining the detail, because I think it is really important for everybody to understand about the uniqueness of the draft UTP that they presented to us. And it was only recent that they did that. So we had to act quickly, because there is a deadline with regard to the public comment time. And if you noticed in one of the slides that Mr. Calvo was showing everybody, there was a discussion with regard to column 1 and column 2, the one on the right-hand side. There was also commentary being placed by the commission telling us that whatever we wanted to do was contingent upon a commitment by the MPO. And so they were seeking that the MPO directly respond to the draft UTP. Understand, this is a draft UTP. The Transportation Commission will not adopt, or they're able to make changes, or that's why they're asking for commentary. It will not be adopted until the August commission meeting. So we had to act fast, and we were somewhat confused in terms of what the choices that they were giving and what they were expecting from us. So after a very healthy discussion with the executive committee, we moved quickly, and we had that meeting with the top administrators for TxDOT. And there was a lot of good information and answers that were provided to us. I mean, we continue to emphasize to them that Segment 2 is a priority project for this region for many different reasons, and some of them being safety issues. There's some problems with that part of I-10. It's hazardous, and we don't want something in the future to happen in this community. But it's also, I-10 is kind of like the heart of what we have available for international trade. And international trade is so important to this community, and it brings money to El Paso, and it helped us stay afloat during the pandemic. But it's not only important to El Paso, it's important to the state of Texas and to the entire nation. So there has to be action taken with regard to the project on funding Segment 2 of I-10. And so we were very successful because we've been talking to commissioners, and the whole delegation has been involved with that as to why Segment 2 I-10 is so important to us. And we were very, very happy to see that it was actually placed on the UTP. And that's because all districts, all communities across the state are fighting for precious dollars to get their projects funded. And there are way over 100 projects that have been submitted to the commission for funding. And kind of like what Mr. Calvo said, to actually have it placed on the UTP is a very extremely positive sign, because that means that in the future, we're looking at getting funding for this project. Where we had difficulty in understanding was, were they asking us to put that much skin in the game in the way they worded the draft UTP? And at this stage, what they want from us in talking to the top administrators is they just want a commitment from the MPO that we want that project funded, and that we are willing as an MPO to work with them on how to come up with the remaining amount of money. The entire project is 750 million, and what we're looking at now is that if we give that commitment, then we are looking at column 2 in terms of them. That's what we're asking from them to place in the UTP, and with that placement in the UTP, the other monies are going to need to come in the 2023 UTP. And this is where I'm going to ask Tomas in a few minutes to kind of explain the process, is when we need the money for segment 2. So there, we are not going to what was placed in the agenda in terms of approval that the executive committee was recommending in terms of putting that 100 million, because it's not necessary. It's not clear at this stage as to how much money or how much skin in the game we're going to have to put in order to get the remaining funding in 2023. There are many things that are happening right now across our nation, and there are other avenues available for funding. But the one thing that Eduardo said, and that I commit to, and I'm sure other people on this policy board, is that it would be very unreasonable for us to say that we're going to put in the 688.6 million all on segment 2, because even though it's that money has been set aside, has been designated for other projects, and we're not willing to postpone many other projects for such a long time. There may be a need to postpone some projects, and some that we can definitely wait on. But that doesn't mean those projects are going to go away, because we would still seek and make sure that we get the funding on those projects that are already on our RMS. So we are going to be seeking a motion that I'm going to actually make myself on this. But what I'd like to do now is to basically open it up for questions. I see that Senator Blanco has been raising his hand for a while, and I see our mayor has also raised his hand. Those are the two that are visible to me. So let's go ahead and start with Senator Blanco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate yours and Eduardo's explanation. Look, I think we all know that I-10 segment 2 is our #1 priority for the El Paso district, and I was pleased that segment 2 was placed in the 2022 UTP draft plan, and this is something the delegation has worked hard toward, and I appreciate the Texas Transportation Commission for listening to us in our community, in our region, to the needs of our region, and making sure that the state is investing in our future, because as you all know, I mean, infrastructure is key to continuing our economic growth in our region, and this is a much needed project. Once completed with segment 2, we're going to improve and increase our mobility in our region. We're going to ease congestion. Importantly, we're going to reduce the pollution in the area, And ultimately, it's going to help with trade and our economy. So it was great to hear that TxDOT is looking to work with the El Paso MPO, and me and my office have had conversations with TxDOT to identify or to reprioritize funds allocated for certain projects categories to segment 2 of I-10 in order to fill that gap. And I understand that the number we're looking at is 688 million, which I also agree is a very large amount for our community to put in. But as we continue to advocate for segment 2 and to show the Texas Transportation Commission that we're committed to this project, and Madam Chair, you had mentioned that Tomas is going to provide some additional details, and I know we're talking about around $100 million. My question is, what is that reasonable amount that we can offer, and how much of that will advance segment 2 of I-10? I know, some may not want to negotiate with TxDOT on this, but I think we need to be mindful that we need to plan and we need to discuss our options. And I'm glad we're having this agenda item here today. So that's my general question. What is that reasonable amount? Maybe that's a question for Tomas. But we really need to get the commission to understand that there is needed investment here in El Paso. And we need to secure more funds. But my overall question is what's that reasonable amount, or what's that commitment? And do we need a number commitment at this point? Is it just a verbal commitment, or is there a dollar amount? So maybe that's a good question for Tomas.
Senator, thank you for your comments. And from what we understand is we don't at this stage need to have a dollar amount. But it is a good segue to have our local district engineer, Tomas Trevino, kind of explain the timeline and to comment to us. So, Mr. Trevino.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. You're right. I think it probably is a little premature, in our conversation yesterday with administration. The ask was simply a commitment from the local MPO to work with administration and the commission on and looking at potential funding sources here locally, skin in the game, as Eduardo mentioned. And basically the commitment is that we're going to continue to do that from here to next fiscal year. As far as the project is concerned, we're not quite there as far as being able to deliver, and where funding becomes critical just yet. We still got quite a bit of work on the working through the NEPA process. Right now we're at 60% schematic development, hoping to have that wrapped up by next summer. And from there, we're going to continue our environmental studies and hopefully work toward an environmental clearance by fall of 23. So, with that timeline, there's still quite a bit of time to work through the funding issue before it becomes what we call critical mass and potentially delaying the project. So I think the ask for this UTP is simply a commitment from the MPO and the local region to look toward some of the funding opportunities for upcoming UTPs. So we were unsure as to what exactly the aspect was when we did the executive committee meeting last Friday, and that's why we felt it was important to talk to administration to just get some clarification to see if it was all or nothing, or if there was an intermediate step in there that they were looking for. But in that conversation yesterday, it was simply a commitment to work with administration and the commission to look for some of those opportunities.
I think Cherry, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Tomas. Does anybody have any questions on what he just explained. Okay,
Madam
then,
Chair, this is
Madam
what,
Chair?
could I just add something else in terms of the process? I mean, Tomas laid out some sort of like the timeline. You know, the bottom line is that, you know, we don't need to have the funding shown in this UTP, right, in fiscal year 22. But I think of the fiscal year 23 UTP is very important because of what Tomas explained. But I think what is more exciting at this point, Madam Chair, and I think you will agree based on the conversation yesterday, is that what is important is for us to open the formal dialogue with TxDOT and the administration on how to do this, right? And so that's why you know, we agreed that putting a dollar amount at this point is probably not the best idea. So therefore, that $100 million concept that we talked about may not be part of this response, right? Because there's a lot of things that are going to happen in this coming year, right? We will get a new federal highway bill, reauthorization bill. There's you know, a lot of conversations about an infrastructure bill. You know, who knows what that's going to look like, you know, in its final shape, right? But it is very likely that more money is going to come to all the regions, including us, right? So there's a lot of opportunities out there. So what I think is most important at this point is for us to express the commitment to work with them. You know, clearly we're not going to give out the farm, and but we will work with them and figure out a way with really having the real target to get the project funded in the fiscal year 23 UTP. So again, you know, I feel very good after that conversation, and I feel very good about you know, working with, of course, with Tomas and Eddie locally, but you know, directly also with the administration and the commission, and you know, hopefully negotiate in good faith and get something reasonable.
and just to echo your comments, Eduardo, I felt just as good after we had that meeting, and we expect that there are going to be additional monies available for the 2023 UTP. We know that there's change that's taking place within our own state where things are looking brighter in terms of what's going to be available on the state side. We do know that there is, being here in DC, that we are looking at the infrastructure, transportation funding that the feds are looking to give to states. So there are going to be monies that are going to be allocated, and I have to assure you that we are working jointly. We're working hard. That we're gonna keep our eyes open for each and every way that potentially that we can fund this project and continue to make it a priority in the 2023 UTP. And as you heard from our local district engineer, that funding, that complete funding of the $750 million does not need to be in this year's UTP, but we're very excited that we are expecting that there will be potentially up to close to 62 million that will be funded for this project. And again, it's that placing it in the UTP is what is something that we all should be extremely happy, because that's a huge commitment on the part of the commission if we see the draft being adopted next month, because that additional funding will come from somewhere, and we're unified in making sure that whatever we have to potentially postpone will not be anywhere close to that amount that is where we have to fill in the gap. So that's something that we need to stress to all of you. As you could tell from Mr. Calvo's comment and from Mr. Trevino's comment and from our senator's comment, and the delegation has been working hard on this. I mean, it's not something that's happened overnight. This is something that we've been pushing for a couple of years. We've had some really good partners with the city, with the county, with other groups within our community, and that's why they finally understood, hey, they need to put it into the UTP, because it's not only good for this community, it's good for the state of Texas. So this is a very important item, and it was something that happened quickly, and that's why we thought that it was. And it's good to have these discussions. I see that Mayor Leester's hand has been raised, so I'm going to call upon him now.
Thank you, Madam. And I think it's really important that the original proposal, which was to give up all funding for the next 10 years, was not a project or something that it was a non-starter for our community. And it was important that we move forward to try to negotiate. At this point, I think you made a comment that, economic development and international trade is so important. And that's why all the other projects that we've been working on for, that are out there for the next 10 years that we continue to look at. And it's, I understand the importance of this project, but it's also the importance of connectivity to our community and to the world that's so important to El Paso. And there's some great economic development projects that the city's working on today that will be important moving forward. So I can tell you that giving up the next 10 years was not an option for the city and not an option for me, but negotiating and looking at what's the best way of doing it to move it forward and continue to fund the whole community is going to be so important. So, today it's a starting conversation, and I know it will lead us to a lot more conversations moving forward. But I just want to make sure to go on the record that I'm all in favor of a discussion, and I'm all in favor of making sure that we can move the project forward, but also to not give up what's important to the community that we felt was important, and that's why we put them in the next 10 years to make sure that we did connect our community and we did make it easier for our citizens, but also the businesses that are in El Paso to be able to commute through our community. So I just want to make sure that I express my viewpoints that all those projects out there are so important that the negotiation is a great starter, but we do need to take into account some of the projects that are going on in our community and make sure that we follow up on those. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments,
Madam
Mayor.
Chair?
Yes.
Madam, I am so sorry I've been muted, and I apologize for that. I've had to heard of, so many things that are so important, and I hadn't been able to contribute. And like the mayor, we've been in sync in a lot of things, and this one's one that includes us. But I just want to say that, we're very fortunate. We've got a economic, one of the strongest economic, forces here in El Paso compared to other parts of Texas. But I don't feel that we should depend too much on that, because I think things will begin to level off, and we need these types of projects for more of the long term. I think some of the things that we're seeing are short term, money coming in and so forth. The other thing is that I too was worried about, what would be taken off the table if we went that route. But now we've heard something very different, which is very encouraging. But also as a county, we also have received money, and we're looking at a lot of infrastructure. And so that will help tremendously, that we're looking at some infrastructure so that we don't, that we can continue to do everything else that needs to be done. I'm very optimistic about the president and what he wants to do in infrastructure. So we're excited. But I think this particular, and I cannot speak obviously for Commissioner's Court, but I can speak for myself, that I'm extremely motivated. I think the future of El Paso, we've been at these crossroads of success so many times, and then something happens, and we sort of stay pretty much where we were before. We really need something that takes us to the next level. We can no longer compete with San Antonio and other communities by just hoping that things happen. So this is a very tangible, an incredible project that we could get our hands around and do it in the most proper way that helps everybody involved. And so, like the mayor, I want to be on record that I'm extremely supportive, because I could see that we need an economic booster. In the short run, it looks good, but in the long run, I'm really concerned about that situation. So I want to thank you for that, and I apologize because I don't want anyone to feel that I too am not appreciative of what the delegation is doing. The county is extremely aligned. We've participated in law for to be able to stop the any issues with voting restrictions. And so I cannot tell you how I feel. My heart really goes out to all of you to be in that situation, away from family, and do this for the community. I really believe this is going to be one of the most memorable and dedications from our delegation that we'll remember for a long time. It's a huge sacrifice, but I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I know the community. We cannot let this, especially El Paso. People don't realize that we could talk a lot about what happens in other communities, but we are extremely vulnerable. We need to be able to vote properly. We've made so many initiatives to vote and, to get people to vote. And this would really put us back a long ways. And we're finally getting people out there, and we don't want any restrictions. So once again, for those two things, and I apologize because I'd been muted and taking up this time, but the delegation, my heart goes out to you. And this project, I can tell you, there's not going to be one bigger that's going to take us to the level that we should be, and be able to be at the level of economic development, so that they can notice us. The state economic development is beginning to notice us by bringing some projects here to El Paso that were never brought to El Paso. And that's because of what we're doing. Infrastructure is going to be extremely necessary. So, Madam Chair, thank you for your leadership.
Okay. Judge, thank you so much for your kind words, and again, spread what you just said, because I think our community needs to understand why we are doing this and why we're up here. I see two other hands. I think City Representative Cassandra Hernandez has had a hand raised for a while.
Yes, thank you, Ortega. First, I wanted to thank you for your leadership on the Transportation Committee and helping get this on the UTP. We are very excited for this. In terms of the City of El Paso, the City of El Paso in 2019 approved a resolution in May of 2019 with overwhelming support for Segment 2. So we stand behind the strategy that's been presented forward here today. And we encourage that discussion so that we can get that funding in the future allocations. So I'm also, as Judge Samaniego mentioned, I'm also very optimistic hearing about infrastructure bills coming forward. And so it's time that El Paso takes our fair share. And I think these are the good first steps to get us there. Now, Mr. Calvo, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned about the public comment period. Is the public comment period just for MPOs, or is that open to the public, so that we can start to get our constituents to respond to the much needed improvements of the expansion of Segment 2?
Absolutely. This public comment period is open to the general public, and it is specific to the fiscal year 22 UTP. But again, it's not exclusive for MPOs. It's anybody. It's the public in general. So yeah, and that's a very good point that you make, Rep. Hernandez, because we do need to have people provide comments, and if you look at the slide here, TxDOT is asking the public, well, are you in support of the funding, but also are you in support of the project? And of course, they need to hear not just from the MPO and from the state delegation and elected officials and all that, but also from the public. So that's a great point that you put up. I encourage you to encourage your constituents to provide comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We will do that.
Representative Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to echo the fact that I want to thank the mayor and the county judge for their words. Obviously, they feel the pulse of this board and of our community, and I thank them. I thank you for your leadership as well, Ms. Ortega. I appreciate you bringing this to us, and actually, as was stated, placing it in the UTP. I've got a question for Mr. Calvo. How will you follow up with us as to what TxDOT Austin says? Will you be updating us as soon as you meet with them, or are we going to have to wait for the meeting to take place?
No, what I foresee is, take a deep breath and really start the conversations with the administration and the commission starting, as soon as possible and an update and, clearly before we commit to anything, we'll bring it up to the board to make sure that everybody's in agreement with whatever we are proposing, right? I envision this as not being a one and done. There will be multiple conversations, and as more events happen, like the federal reauthorization bill, an infrastructure bill, and we figure out more when we have more information. That's going to obviously affect the the negotiation, but yeah, I can assure you, we're not going to do anything definite without bringing it here to the policy board of the MPO.
Okay, thank you, because I think that's very important for us to know right away as soon as you meet with them. I thank you for your response. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Walter Miller, Alderman, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to briefly follow up with Representative Hernandez's comment on other folks needing to, and Mr. Calvo's comment on other folks needing to comment on this. I think it's important that each of the member organizations of the MPO go back to their bodies and see if they can get a similar resolution passed through their bodies if they have time. This is a statewide comment, and if we can show that unity that we have talked about previously regarding how we can speak with one voice, I think it would be important to show the commission that we do speak as one voice and have a supporting resolutions and actions from each of the bodies. And I'm going to recommend that to my council, and I would hope that other folks would do that also. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I don't see any more hands raised. Is there another hand? Okay, Commissioner Holguin, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. I understand that this body has already stated its support for this project, but I guess as the newest member of the MPO, I do feel that I do have to just lay out some of the concerns that I have. For me personally, it feels very premature to me to express support for the widening of I-10 before the comment period is even over. As Representative Hernandez mentioned and Mr. Calvo explained, this comment period is for all of the public. And I feel personally that when we discuss this issue on the Commissioner's Court, there are still a lot of questions that are unanswered. We hear a lot from community members who are not in fact in support of the project. So for me personally, I don't feel that I could be in support until the comment period closes and I actually have that opportunity to hear from the public. And additionally, it makes me very uncomfortable, this idea that we're talking about sacrificing some of the projects that are already in the works in order to try to come up with this 688 million funding gap. To me, I don't think that that's fair to our communities. So I just wanted to express my thoughts, and to me, it's just premature for me personally to be able to support this, but I wanted to be able to explain why that is what my vote is going to reflect. Thank you.
Commissioner Holguin, I just want to make it clear, I appreciate your comments, and I think that it's good for you to make them, to express what you are thinking right now, but there is no project that's going to be sacrificed. Projects might be postponed, and sometimes it's actually necessary to postpone some projects, but we're not looking at sacrificing anything. And that's one thing that we want to make it clear to everyone.
And I would hope not, Madam Chair, but when projects are postponed, I mean, sometimes you're talking about projects being postponed for so long that in effect they are ultimately sacrificed, and that's my concern.
All right, any other comments? Anybody else? Mr. Calvo, I don't see anybody else raising their hand. Is that correct?
I don't see anything else, but I don't see the list right now since I'm sharing my screen.
Yes.
Marisol or anybody, can you double check before we go to public comment?
Yes, there's no hands.
Thank you. So then we will now go to public comment.
Yes, I have public comment from Mr. Fred Evans.
Go ahead and proceed.
Mr. Evans, you would need to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I'm
And just
Fred
a
Evans.
reminder that you have
Here's
3
some-
minutes, Mr. Evans.
I don't know if you heard that,
I
sir, but,
understand.
okay, good. Go ahead, please proceed.
You'll hear some technical reasons and scientific reasons for opposition to premature funding of the current I-10 downtown proposal. What I'm going to give you is the view from 75 years as an El Pasoan. I'm a past president and current board member of the County Historical Society, a board member of 5 Points Development. I grew up with my grandparents in 5 Points, shopped at Sears, shopped on Copia Street that's now in the middle of Interstate 10, and those experiences led to several career changes for me and the community. It was an important formative thing. I ran the elevator in the Trost Masonic Temple at the site of the present Doubletree, walked home up Oregon Street past the House of Carpets, now in I-10, stopping at Madeline's Sweet Shop on the site of a community college building. I went to church at Trinity Methodist at Mesa and Yandle and ate at the Oasis across the street. My parents were buried from Harding and Orr downtown, and my grandparents from Castor and Maxon downtown. And of all those life experiences, only my church remains, and it's now under a greater threat than it's ever been. And what is it that's decimated the neighborhood life that I knew growing up? What's this pernicious monster that swallowed up what used to be the heart of El Paso and now raises its ugly head to feed again? It's the pet pit bull, kept and nurtured by bodies like this who refuse to see how it's turned, attacked, and destroyed its surroundings. It's Interstate 10, and it's been fed, coddled, and promoted by greed, false information, and erroneous beliefs. What you're proposing today is premature promotion and support of financing for a project that's been misrepresented, doesn't have the support of the most affected communities, and is not even designed yet, if TxDOT is to be believed, and completely ignores the Northeast Borderline Expressway that is designed and would relieve traffic on I-10. The expansion of I-10 is currently proposed under the 3 variations espoused by TxDOT is an affirmation and furtherance of a disaster perpetrated. It's a disaster that brought heat, noise, and pollution to the heart of the city, virtually destroyed ethnic neighborhoods, divided remaining neighborhoods, discouraged north-south movement, killed businesses, and facilitated the decline and decimation of core neighborhoods. And we're told this expansion will save downtown. Did I miss something? If a freeway through the heart of downtown will save it, what happened in the 1960s? And why are we spending tens of millions to rebuild downtown? So a freeway in the 60s didn't do it. Indeed, one could easily argue that it did the opposite. But a more monstrous freeway will do it this time. If you bleed the patient and he doesn't get better, you just do it again and take more blood. That's about as modern an idea as the currently proposed project downtown, a 20th century solution to a 21st century problem. Emerging thought is to remove freeways from urban areas, not enlarge them. This downtown I-10 project as proposed is as someone trying to board the train after it's left the station. Promoting this premature funding is as someone arriving at the station without even knowing if there's a train. Premature promotion and support of this proposal only does more to firmly cement El Paso's position once again at the rear end of progress.
Thank you, Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Is there anybody else signed up?
Yes, we have Cito Negron.
Go ahead and proceed, Cito.
You have to unmute yourself.
Cito, we cannot hear you. You're going to need to unmute yourself.
Okay, we can come back to Cito. We do have Mr. Scott White.
Go ahead, Mr. White.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I especially want to thank our members of the TPC who are helping make quorum from Washington, D.C. today. Your service and your efforts are greatly appreciated. On the matter at hand here with the this issue with the UTP funding, I have a problem with the idea that we are really looking at having to decide how we are going to reshuffle plans for our transportation infrastructure for the next who knows how many years over a project that we haven't even really seen the final version yet. I'm not sure where we are in the EIS process. And as Mr. Evans said, one of the issues is it is detrimental potentially to the north-south movement of the community in central El Paso. If we want to build a strong, vibrant, inclusive community that is going to create more economic opportunity, we may need to rethink some of the proposals in this project. And that means we have to take a step back at points and say, is this what we really need for our community? Yes, the interstate is important, but what other aspects of this project, as it is being designed and proposed, are really going to benefit this community, or is it just simply going to facilitate the movement of cars and trucks through our community? If we want economic opportunity, we want people to be able to get to their destinations easily, no matter how they travel. This may mean we need to look at, instead of investing in widening this project, we need to look at investing in more transit, more walkability, more bikeability, and also we need to look at safety. The TxDOT has its road to zero aimed for 2050. That means ending all traffic deaths in 2050 by 2050. Will this design of this freeway actually make that possible? What about our other projects as they're designed? Will that be possible? We want to make our city the best city it can possibly be. And I appreciate that everyone is working towards that aim. But is this project as the proposed funding is being laid out, is that how we get there? When we talk about the future, when we talk about economic opportunity, it needs to work for all of us, no matter where we come from in the community, no matter where we live. And we need to make sure the heart of our city is a part of that economic vibrance.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anybody else? Marisol.
Yes, we
Hi,
have Mr. Cito Negron.
Okay, go ahead and proceed. Can he?
Yeah, hi, sorry, this is Cito. Sorry, I did star six. Am I being called upon, or is there a different speaker?
No, go ahead, Cito. You're next.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry about the difficulty. Before I speak on item 4, I really want to thank the delegation for your strong actions to represent the voters. I'm sorry that I have to be here today opposing this item, but y'all are doing great work in DC, and we very much appreciate it. I'm going to try to speak quickly because there really is a lot to go through. I really want to thank Commissioner Holguin for hearing us on these issues. There's a strong group, and it's growing, raising these issues that are being brought up at the national level. With respect to Representative Fernandez's comments, it struck me that we don't know where this ends. I don't know if her constituents, for example, are aware that segment 3 is supposed to follow segment 2. And that would take many, many more properties in the Lincoln Center community, both north and south of the freeway, where Lincoln Center was devastated by the original building of the freeway. So we know plans can change, but we also know that the national discussion is the opposite of this proposal that we are going forward with. And so to fund it at this time, especially when the EIS hasn't been done, especially when the district engineer has told us that we have more time to evaluate this, seems very premature and puts us on a predetermined path. There was misleading press last week indicating the project had been funded. Now we find out that's not the case. So what are we going to find out as we go through this process? Why is a project that really hasn't been fully vetted out going to suck up all the resources of the region, possibly to the detriment, not from our perspective very much, to the detriment of all of the communities adjacent, not just to I-10, but all of that heavy infrastructure that comes over the ports and has done so much damage. We talk about other entities. The TxDOT refused the county request to continue studying reconstruction without widening or frontage roads or to do a tunnel. The first option would be much less expensive, leaving us money for other regional priorities. And the second option would be much more progressive and something that is increasingly being considered around the country. And if we're going to do this project, we should do it right. We're worth the cost. We've talked about fair share. In my understanding of fair share, not fully funding a project that's supposedly so important to the state doesn't seem to be a fair share argument to me. And if it is so important to the state, why is the state not just funding it? Do other communities go through these gyrations and cannibalize their own projects in order to get something done that the state says is a priority? So there's just a lot of questions about the funding. There's a lot of questions about the project. I could probably go on at length about the issues associated with the project that we haven't fully vetted out.
Thank you, Mr. Negron.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Your time's up.
All right. Thank you all very much. I'll leave it at that, but I'm sure there'll be more discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I don't. All right, thank you, Marisol. At this point, we can now proceed with the next an item of action on.
Hello?
Excuse me?
I didn't get a chance to speak.
Sir, I'm not sure who you are. I asked if there was anybody else that was registered to speak, and I was told no.
Well, I've been listening to the entire meeting. My name's Robert Storch. I'm a resident of Sunset Heights, and I'd like to speak on item 4.
Sergio, can we allow him to speak? Is that permitted?
If he did not sign up to speak in the manner indicated for public comment, you as a presiding chair of the meeting have the discretion to proceed with the meeting or to allow him to speak for 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Sergio. And I think you said your first name was Roberts and it's Storch, or I didn't quite hear the last name. All right. Please go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Thank you. My name's Robert Storch. I'm a resident of Sunset Heights. And I agree with you all that the UTP proposal to fund Downtown 10 at the expense of all the other projects for the next 10 years is unacceptable. However, I disagree that Downtown 10 should be in any way a local priority project. It's a multi-million-dollar solution in search of a problem. Congestion on the urban sections of I-10 will never be solved within the 55-mile corridor studied by Reimagine I-10. Real solutions for effective freight connectivity and a livable city center must be found in the greater region. The TxDOT proposed highway is based on faulty data and an outdated, ineffective highway design concept. It will further divide neighborhoods and hinder local economic development. It will not reduce connection or speed intercity freight shipments. The population of El Paso County has been stagnant for years. Increasing traffic on I-10 comes from cross-country and cross-border traffic and induced demand from urban sprawl. A wider highway will only exacerbate both problems. The priority of the MPO should be to promote transportation systems that reduce traffic in El Paso, not increase it. A dedicated bypass around the city for all traffic and international trade, especially hazardous material, should be top of the list priority. Other projects should direct local traffic away from the highway and strengthen the central city street grid. Projects that promote mass transit and multimodal streets that are safer for bicycles and pedestrians will reduce pollution, reinvigorate neighborhoods, and promote development. Functional, efficient streets are not necessarily wide and fast. We know the Texas Transportation Commission doesn't care about the quality of life in El Paso. We should. The MPO should be working with TxDOT to promote projects to improve the quality of life in El Paso and accomplish the TTC intercity connectivity goals. We want a livable city with less traffic, less air and noise pollution, a city that is safe and more livable. That city will never be realized with a bigger, wider I-10 through its urban core. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
You are welcome. Thank you for your comments. Marisol, again, is there anybody else that you're aware of during public comment?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Now I guess we can go ahead and leave public comment. And I see another hand being raised, and I think it's our mayor. Is that correct, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. And I think it's important to make sure that what we're doing today is looking at our options moving forward. We're not committing any funds. We're not committing any projects. All we're doing is moving forward to look at all our options. And, you know, as we listen to the call to the public and we listen to all the speakers prior, this is our next step to do exactly what they're saying, to look at options and look at how we move forward and see what we need to do. So I just wanted to make sure I made that comment, because as I've been listening, that's exactly what we're going to move forward on, is not to commit any dollars at this point, but to look at options of what we need to do to move forward. So I thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Lisa. That is correct, what you just said. Any other questions or comments by the board?
Madam Chair, Eduardo, I just wanted to follow up on what Mayor Leeser said. He's absolutely right. And also somehow to clarify to Commissioner Holguin, yes, I mean, what we're doing now is the UTP is more directed towards funding. Of course, the public can make a comment regarding the project itself and all that. But I think I've heard some references that we're committing to the project before the environmental process is complete. And, you know, we're not, like Mayor Lisa said, we're not committing to anything. We're just committing to start the conversation with TxDOT administration and the commission. All of the project specific concerns, comments about alternatives and all that is what currently TxDOT is going through, the NEPA process for the project itself. So I would encourage, everybody to participate in that process, because that's where the comment and the discussion about alternatives and all that really should happen. So, we're not jumping the gun. You know, the NEPA process is not complete, and the project will not move forward until the NEPA process is complete. So it's not that we're jumping the gun, but we're opening just the door for the conversation with TxDOT and the commission.
And I think that's a good segue to what we're seeking, and that would be a motion to authorize the executive director and the policy board chair to submit a response to the Texas Transportation Commission. Oh, good, you put it up on the screen. Do I see it on the screen, Mr. Calvo?
Yes.
All right, I'll continue reading it. A response to the Texas Transportation Commission during TxDOT's fiscal year 2022 Unified Transportation Plan, the UTP, public comment period regarding the downtown I-10 project in El Paso to include support for the proposed funding totaling of $61.9 million and a commitment from the El Paso MPO to work with TxDOT and the TTC to develop a reasonable alternative plan to fill the funding gap for the project in the fiscal year 2023 UTP. And so it goes back to what the mayor said. I mean, we're going to be looking into it. We're going to see where we can come up with the funding gap and looking at reasonable alternatives. So at this point, I would entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved. This is Hernandez. Second, Lisa Alvarez.
Any questions, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, at this point, is there anyone who is against or does not support the motion, not in favor of the motion?
Commissioner Diana, Madam Chair. I'm opposed.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Right.
Madam Chair, I'd like to abstain. I'm going to abstain. The court is taking up this item on Monday. And I'd like to defer until the court's made a decision or given us direction on it. Thank you. This is Norma Rivera Palacios.
Thank you, Norma. All right, hearing no one else, the motion is approved or it passes. And we can now move on to item 5 on the agenda. Mr. Calvo.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So before we move forward, I stopped sharing my screen, and Gabby, can you please? There we go. All right. So item number 5 is discussion and action to approve recommendations from the Transportation Project Advisory Committee. And item 5 is amend the Destino 2045 Metropolitan Transportation Plan MTP, amended 2045 MTP, Destino 2019-2023 Transportation Improvement Program TIP, and Destino 2021-2024 TIP to amend the bicycle infrastructure citywide project to move from fiscal year 2021 to fiscal year 2022. And TPAC Chair Greg McNichol will present this.
Good morning, Greg McNichol, Chair of the TPAC Committee. Give you a little bit of background on this project is tied to a pending approval of a TIP amendment. And as we are approaching the end of this fiscal year, we're recommending you move this project to next fiscal year to allow the necessary time to process paperwork once we do get the TIP amendment is received. So it's a pretty straightforward request, just trying to keep this project moving forward.
Is there, well, are there any questions? Is there a motion to approve item 5 on the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. A second. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone not in favor of the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes. Item 6.
All right, so now we're on to reports and discussion. Item 6 is an administrative amendment to the Destino 2045 MTP, amended Destino 2045 MTP, Destino 2019-2023 TIP, and Destino 2021-2024 TIP to amend the Border Highway West Hike and Bike Trail Project to change the project name to Border Highway West Shared Use Path in fiscal year 2024. MPO is ready to answer any questions if necessary.
Are there any questions? And this is, since this is just a report, Mr. Calvo, we don't need any kind of motion on this.
Correct. Right. It's an administrative amendment that we just come in and notify the board that this is happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Then item number 7 is New Mexico CMAQ and TAP fiscal year 2023 plus call for projects. With I believe Gabby has a short announcement here.
Yes, good morning, Gabriela Lopez with the El Paso MPO. This is just to announce and remind everyone that we have an open call for projects for the New Mexico Department of Transportation, CMAQ, TAP, and RTP funds. All the important documentation is in your backup and is also available in our website. We did send a reminder. This project call was actually extended a month. It used to be that the deadline to submit any draft documentation was June 30th. However, due to us not receiving any applicants, we did postpone it a month to July 30th. So next Friday, July 30th is the first deadline to submit any draft applications to the MPO by 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And that is for both the CMAQ, TAP, and RTP call for projects. As a reminder, any entity that wants to apply needs to have an approved ADA transition plan and Title VI program by the NMDOT Title VI and ADA coordinator. So that deadline to submit any plans was July 12th. So if you do not have a current approved plan, you will not be eligible for the funds. If there's any questions, you can contact me. All the information is in your packet.
Thank you, Gabby. I take it there are no questions, so we can now move to item 8.
Okay. Item number 8 is public participation plan amendment and 45-day public comment period. This will be presented by Jeff Howell, who, by the way, is one of the newest additions to the MPO staff. Jeff?
Yes, good morning, Chair and TPB members. Jeff Howell with the MPO. Item 8 on the agenda is to provide you with a brief introduction to the Public Participation Plan amendment and our 45-day public comment period, which is currently in progress. The Public Participation Plan is a document that outlines the strategies and activities used to engage the public in transportation planning and the decision-making process. It is required to be updated every 3 years, and the most recent update was approved by the Transportation Policy Board last year in 2020 in order to include the provisions of virtual meetings and social media posting to improve outreach. With the amendment that is being brought forward at this time, we are updating the Public Participation Plan to include the annual listing of obligated projects, which is a report of how funds were spent in the last year on transportation projects, include the updated Title VI complaint procedures and forms, which were also recently updated, include provisions for executive committee member absences, address minor typos, and to also update various website links that were modified during a website update this spring to ensure that they're working properly. The rest of the document does remain the same as before. There is one additional item that is not reflected in the document that we would like to possibly incorporate after the public comment period is over. However, we would like to have further review and discussion with the board, as well as the Transportation Project Advisory Committee at a future agenda item, and that is regarding adding language to the Tier 1 and Tier 2 amendments found within Section 4 of the Public Participation Plan. As I mentioned, similar to other MPO documents, there is a public comment period, which in this case is 45 days. This began about 2 weeks ago on July 6th and does continue to August 20th. During this time, the MPO will be conducting 2 virtual public meetings to discuss the updated plan and receive comments and ideas on how to improve the public involvement efforts. The first of these virtual meetings was actually held this week on Wednesday, July 21st. The final virtual public meeting is in a few weeks on Wednesday, August 11th from 4 to 5 p.m. More information can be found on the MPO website, which is elpasompo.org, regarding how to access the meeting through the computer or over the phone, as well as the draft updated Public Participation Plan document itself that is available for review, and how to submit comments as well. And that concludes my presentation.
Jeff, thank you, and welcome to the MPO. We're very pleased that you are now working with us. Are there any questions? Are there any questions for Jeff? Okay, hearing none, we can now move on to item 9.
All right, item number 9 is RMS 2050 Travel Demand Model Status Report. Salvador Gonzalez will take this one.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Again, this is Salvador Gonzalez Ayala with the El Paso MPO. Very briefly, and just to report to the TPB that work continues in the identification of transportation projects. Of course, making sure that these are fiscally constrained. So work goes on, and we have scheduled to conclude this phase in 2 to 3 more weeks. That's pretty much it.
Okay. I see no questions. Yes, Eduardo?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, as Salvador said, you know, the one of the most important parts about the RMS 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan is coming up with a project list. So we've been coordinating with some of the stakeholders. We haven't completed all that coordination. We still need to work with the City of El Paso staff and all that to make sure that you know, the priority projects are included in there. But we are hoping to complete the process and keep moving forward with the modeling activities, so that will keep us on track and on schedule to complete the RMS 2050 MTP.
Thank you, Eduardo. All right, item.
All right,
I'm sorry.
Item number 10. Right, Regional Mobility Strategy, RMS 2020 Project Development Status. Again, this is the monthly report. The information, the backup information is in your, along with the package. There's really, you know, mostly good news in terms of the projects that are scheduled for letting in 2021. I know with the City of El Paso, CBD4 and let a couple months ago, Rojas is, I think, in letting this month or next month, but the bottom line, it's on track. And also some of the TxDOT projects that are scheduled for this fiscal year are moving forward very, nicely. Again, if you have any specific questions, I'm available after this meeting if you want to talk about that.
Okay. Your executive director's report?
Not much more to report, Madam Chair. I think a lot of the excitement this month we have already discussed. I don't have anything more to talk about at this point.
Thank you. I see a hand up, Mayor Perea.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Eduardo, is there any update on the SDRTD's request for the 5307 funding? I know there was a meeting canceled last time, but has there any progress been made on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a completely separate item that will definitely come, before the board later on. But the short answer is yes, we've made a lot of progress here researching the 5307 question. It turns out it's a lot more complicated than we thought, a lot of moving pieces, but we want to make sure that we get it right. So yeah, the answer is we've made progress and we will be contacting the parties very soon to start a formal discussion on how to deal with 5307.
And just to add to that, yeah, there's been a lot of work that's been put into it, and we have gathered and we do have a lot of information now. And so the next step is talking to people about it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Okay, I think we are now at the final item of our agenda, and that is to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So be.
Thank you. Second.
Second, Mayor Trujillo.
All right, great. So we are now officially adjourned. Again, thank you all for being a part of this important meeting. We're trying to keep these meetings as short as we can, but this one had to be long because, as you could tell, the item that needed to be discussed that was very important. So we look forward to the next meeting and keeping you all advised as to what is going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.